2, 1. Although sometimes they're seeing you talk as we talk here. Hello, everybody, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way to eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange, raise more capital, do more deals, and really create more freedom when exiting any property of any kind or any asset of any kind. We're also streaming expert CRE secrets as well, where we're bringing on some of the best commercial real estate experts in the world to share their secrets with us. For those who don't know me, my name is Brett Swarts, and I'm the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And I'm excited about our next guest. Each show, we're trying to bring on some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and leadership minds in the world. And our next guest, I believe, is not going to disappoint. He is, just 3 years ago, he was an out-of-work actor who had just lost his wife's life savings in a feature film he produced. And he was collecting unemployment and writing screenplays. Then their second kid was on the way when his wife started listening to real estate podcasts and learning about investing. Within 2 months, she told this next guest to drop everything to focus on investing, and he began committing around 60 hours a week to finding deals. Within 2.5 year span, he managed to build a $35 million self-storage portfolio with little to no money in the bank, and he did it by cold calling and so much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Cameron Barsanti. Cameron, how you doing?
Good. Barsanti, but Barsanetti is not, it wasn't the first time I was called that. So no worries. I've been called much worse. I wrestled throughout high school, and for some reason, out of any sport, the wrestling, the announcers, they just chop my name, to bits. Barsanati, Darsanti. So you got it. But yeah, Barsanti. Hey, thanks, Brett, for having me. Thanks for the introduction. Unfortunately, it's all true. But yeah, happy to be here.
Excellent. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, you got it. So, you kind of hit on the points of how I'm here now, right? So it's been a pretty quick, crazy ride. Originally getting into real estate 3.5 years ago, started in multifamily, bought my first storage facility 2.5 years ago. But, so we've been full-time storage, gunning and running for about 2.5 years, a little bit over. But prior to that, grew up in a small town in Colorado, mountain town, epic, skiing on a river, a great little place to grow up. Whole life really wanted to, always had this kind of this neat want and desire to help people, maybe encourage, inspire people. I didn't really know what that was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be through public speaking, motivational speaking, and then somehow ended up actually going to pursue an acting career in Hollywood when I was 18. That dumb idea, I don't know how that translated from wanting to help people. Maybe I thought I was going to inspire people, right? So moved to Hollywood, had some great opportunities to work in the industry. Was kind of a wreck, had a lot of life lessons to learn, trials and tribulations, had a decade of really just kind of crashing and burning as a human. And it wasn't until I was really pushing 30, met my now amazing wife, Christina, where then I had somebody else to, really work for, not just my degenerate self. And so tried to get back into the acting industry. Never really felt right, but I just didn't want to do anything else. Didn't really want to work anywhere else. Thought I could make a lot of money. Was a slow roll. So then I decided to make my own feature film. That was a nightmare. It was very challenging. I lost literally her life savings. So by then we had our second kid. I was in my late 30s. And she learned through podcasts that we could actually start investing in real estate with no money. So I started trying to wholesale. We pulled out $90,000 of equity in our home. We bought a triplex I found on Craigslist in Texas, an 11 unit. We partnered up with our partner in New Mexico, and we're a partner in an 11 unit. And then I stumbled upon my first bank-owned storage facility, and that's how I'm here.
Amazing, Cameron. What a story of inspiration. And I mean, that's the inspiring part right there. You started with high hopes and goals for Hollywood, and now things were tough for a while, but now you're building wealth and helping people build wealth and hopefully get some freedoms of their own. So I'm curious, Cameron, talking about our story or the podcast subject today, which is building a $35 million self-storage portfolio in just 2.5 years. Cameron, what would you say the number one secret for you to be able to do that? What was that?
Yeah, good question. And I've broken this down to help other people. I teach my own students. And so I've kind of really had to, get better and think more in retrospect was like, what was it? Right. And so, I've had time to really kind of break it down and really simplify it. And obviously at the time, I didn't kind of really know what I was doing that was working. But to really kind of simplify it for everybody listening, is I found that like if you kind of really think about just momentum in general, right? And when I look back on what happened to me, I was desperate and I saw all this opportunity, right? So for me, it was like the desperation met the opportunity and I was so excited. It was actually one of the most exciting things that had ever happened, this idea of passive income. I never knew about it. I didn't know what a title company was. I didn't know how things worked. I didn't know how real estate worked. And so I was pumped. I saw the opportunity. I never looked back. And so what happened was I started doing everything I could, right? It was like, for me, I learned, I hired a coach right away. I've always had a coach my entire real estate career. I hired a coach. We were listening to lots of podcasts and meetups, and we were doing everything we could. And so what happened was we started building lots of momentum really quickly. And one thing that I think I was doing that I didn't know was like almost backwards is after my coach had taught me how to underwrite and kind of saw what kind of deals he was trying to buy and what a good deal looked like, well, then I could start go looking for deals. And so I started doing that right away. I was cold calling my butt off, looking everywhere for deals, Craigslist, off market, pulling lists of off market properties. And every time I'd call somebody, whether it was a broker, another person, somebody at a meetup, I love talking and I love people. And so what I found was all these outputs, they were all creating some sort of opportunity, which was creating the momentum. And so then with tons of cold calling and really my own deal funnel right off the bat, the deal funnel started providing crazy opportunities for me. I was able to bring deals to like super seasoned investors that never in a million years what I thought would partner up with a beginner. And because I had the good deal, I had like the keys to the castle, they wanted to partner with me. And that was huge, right? So breaking it down, deal flow, mentorship, and partnership. And those are literally like the three keys. When I look back and I'm like, wow, what happened? How did we get here? It breaks down to those three things.
Excellent. So deal flow, mentorship, and partnership. And by the way, I think you said a key term multiple times, which is momentum, right? So John Maxwell has this quote. He says, momentum solves 80% of your problems. So I'm curious, Cameron, how did momentum solve your problems when you built a $35 million self-storage portfolio in 2.5 years?
Yeah, cool. Great question. So I think that what the momentum was led by, again, the desperation, the opportunity. I think I have a naive, delusional kind of optimism as well, right? And so the momentum was the waking up every day, that knowing that a cash on cash and this leverage that we are going to start being able to the utilize in real estate was going to create an opportunity we never imagined, right? And so the optimism of that opportunity was what kept me calling, kept me talking. I was so excited about that. And so when you think about what your success, and I tell my students this, but like your success, the direct correlation with your success is your momentum, right? Like the more opportunity you create for yourself, the more successful you're going to be. Like it's actually that simple. So what, and then the other thing that I think is really important is a lot of times what I've observed is people take they're studying, whether it's in multifamily or flipping or land sales or wholesaling or storage, whatever it is, they're dipping their toe in the water. And it's like some of them, they have full-time jobs. We all have families. Like it's tricky, right? Like time is our enemy, right? And so what happens, I think, is if you're dipping your toe in the water, if you're thinking about doing it, if you're studying and talking, maybe spending lots of money on crazy educations and all that. But what happens is all of a sudden, a year or two later, 3 years goes by, and all of a sudden you're telling people this story of like, man, I've been trying to get into real estate wholesaling or multifamily. It's just not really happening. That's what I want to prevent everybody from doing. Like, I never want to hear somebody having that story. And so like, there's no better time when you have a new idea, when all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, dude, I want to get in shape. Like, and that's a great analogy. It's like, you don't like start going to the gym like once a month because you're like, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to like kind of like work my way up to it. Like, take advantage now. Like, there's no better time to do it. And I'm such a big believer in that. And you don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. You don't know what your life is going to look like in 2 years or a year. But if you right now you have an attraction or the ability or the desire to do it, there's no better time to do it. So
very well said. By the way, you can learn more about Cameron. I won't even say the last name because I messed it up, but more about Cameron by going to storagelife.com. He will share with us in a minute, but going to storagelife.com. In fact, if you're listening to this live right now on YouTube, it's actually not coming out for 48 more hours. So if you go there right now, you're going to be like, wait, where's it at? Because it's going to be brand new branding, new marketing, all new stuff, storagelife.com. So I love the way you put that. The direct correlation to your success is the speed of your momentum, or I guess the intensity of your momentum, or how much you can keep that momentum building and growing. And you were doing that by taking massive action. On the other side of that, I don't know if you've heard of Russell Brunson. He talks about the procrastination cycle, right? Or maybe a lot of people do this, where they get that exciting idea, they listen to that podcast, they go to that conference, they get that coaching, and then they start to, get the thing going, the action going. Maybe they're trying to be the how or understand every little nook and cranny of the thing. And they maybe start a little bit on something, and then all of a sudden the momentum pulls down, and then now they're beating themselves up because they didn't get another thing done. In other words, how have you fought the procrastination cycle by not only taking action, but perhaps even hiring the who and not being the how?
yeah, and I'm writing that down, Russell Brunson, because I kind of know who he is. I've seen him around, but I'd love to, you know. So here's one thing, and before I answer that question, so what I find, and so I think probably the thing that I talk about the most and help people the most with is the deal funnel. It's really interesting. If you're a wholesaler, you don't wholesale without a deal. Like, that is your lifeline, right? And ultimately, all of us real estate investors, if we can't find a good deal, we don't make money, right? But there's other ways to find deals. Like, if you're a multifamily investor, maybe brokers are bringing you deals. Maybe you're always looking on market. And in a way, I kind of feel like it's backwards, because you can find somebody to do everything else for you. You can even find somebody to underwrite for you, to go ask who's a great lender, right? I can make 5 calls right now and have 10 great lenders, or maybe a loan broker, right? Or, anybody that connect me with any one of these capital, all that stuff, but nobody's going to bring you a deal. Like, maybe you've built a relationship with a broker, maybe you'll get lucky and you find one on the market. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but if you're trying to expedite your process, if you learn how to source off market deals for yourself, like, you are ahead of most of the game. And so I'm harping on this a little bit, because what happened for me is, like, I always had a deal. I always was looking at a deal, whether it was something I was like, underwriting or putting under contract or buying or operating or taking over. I've always had a deal. My first deal I bought within like 2 months of doing this. And so what happened for me is there was always excitement. Like, we all know like what the dopamine hit is like when you're chasing down a new deal. And then you close it and you're like, oh God, okay, I just made a lot of money, but like, what's next, right? And so by always having a deal in front of you, it's almost like comparing that to going fishing, and like, one guy's not even getting bites. Like, you're done. And now you're like, this is the worst hole. This sucks. I hate fishing. And the other guy's like snagging, maybe hasn't caught a deal, but he's like, fish every couple minutes, whatever. Like, that's the excitement. And so the more you can put yourself in that excitement, that's what I'm talking about, that momentum, right? One example. And then correlating to that, as I was finding deals, I was having to figure out how to take those deals down. And so I could sit here in my house and go, man, I can't wait to be an investor. Like, what do I do first? What do I do first? And maybe I should spend 4 hours learning how to underwrite. Maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I didn't do that. Like, I literally pulled out equity, clock's ticking. Like, my wife's going, we pulled the equity out. You better find a deal, right? Like, we're losing money, right? And so for me, that was always the case. always chasing deals down. And so then because of that, it was like trial by fire, because, I can say, oh, I'll underwrite for 4 hours today. I'm going to call 10 people. I'm going to find 15 lenders just for homework. And like everybody knows, that's really sucks. And it's very boring. But when I have a deal that I just signed on the dotted line and I got 30-day due diligence, and then my 100 grand goes hard, like, I'm not a lazy, but like that is when the clock is ticking. Like it is crunch time. It's go time. You cannot mess up, right?
Yeah,
And so
it
for
sounds like
me,
you were able to basically figure out a way to light a fire. And part of that is putting yourself in an environment where the deals themselves, the environment itself, you're in the game, right? And I'm thinking about the Michael Jordan documentary recently on the Chicago Bulls, and how he said he would create um, these situations in his mind where he'd be in a battle with somebody on the other side of the team. Like he figured a way to light a fire inside of himself and basically let that drive him to greatness, right? Even though the other person may not even know they're in that battle, but he would do that. And I would like, what I hear what you're saying is like, by having these deals and these deal flows, this is creating the excitement by having that big vision of what the cash flow can be if we can sell it, if we can raise this capital, if we can do this deal, make sense of it, right? That's going to X this amount of cash flow. And that's going to create even more momentum. Am I missing it, Cameron, or where am I off here?
No, I think you're right on. And so, when I'm telling people like, hey, like the momentum, and then breaking down the momentum to like the deal flow, the mentorships and the partnerships, I really believe that I felt very, I don't know if it's lucky or fortunate, but the fact that for some reason, like, my wife and I were great listeners. Like, everybody like hire a coach, and we didn't have any money. Like we are like, we don't have money to hire a coach, but we did it right away because everybody was showing us, whether it's, you're listening to like Brandon Turner, or you got whoever you're looking at, and they're going like, I have a coach, and you're seeing all these crazy uberly successful people that still have coaches. And we were like, oh my God, everybody's saying you are going to succeed more if you have a coach. And so we were like, okay, well, we have to do it. Right. And then because of the deals, created partnership opportunities. And so that trifecta of stuff, I don't feel like it ever would have worked one without the other. So yes, the deal funnel was sourcing it was like the engine, right? And it was the opportunity. And then the mentorship, I leveraged the heck out of my coaches. Every coach, like it wasn't like, what can you help me with? It was like, okay, dude, I need an LOI. I need you, like, how do you underwrite this? Can you want to partner with me? Like, is this a good deal? Like, send me your proof. What do you do when they ask for a proof of fund? Whatever it was, like, I leveraged every tool I possibly could from them, and all the knowledge they either had been taught, they had learned themselves. What were they investing in? Why was it a good investment? What markets were they looking in? And then in addition to that, now I was attracting partners, and these partners were helping me actually execute the deal. So my mentors were giving me the best advice of like, actually, how do I actually do this? And especially storage, right? Like, how do I operate storage? How am I going to be one of the better operators in that market? What am I going to look for? And seeing these bigger mentors do what they were doing gave me an insight in the game, right? It's kind of like you're playing high school ball, but then you go like to a camp, and the coach is like world renowned, and he kicks your ass for a month, a week, and you're doing crazy drills you've never done. And then you go back home and you're like, oh, dude, I'm like in a small town team, but there are coaches out there that can like advance my playing like crazy. Well, that's the coach. That's the mentor. That's what I had. And then I go to my partners because I have these deals. I'm like, dude, I have this crazy deal. Check it out. And they're like, oh my God, that looks like a great deal. So here's what you need to do, Cam. We're going to sign LLC docs. We're going to get our partnership agreements together. I got the capital, or my friends got the capital. I got the bank. You did. And so then that was the person that helped me actually execute the deal. And at the beginning, that was the person that would help me actually qualify for the deal, right? Because I didn't have the money.
Amazing. And by the way, you can learn more about Cameron by going to storagelife.com. That's storagelife.com. I'm thinking of another quote. You're inspiring me now, Cameron. And it's a quote by Jim Rohn. He talks about disgust and resolve are two of the greatest emotions that lead to change. I also read his book called The Seasons of Life. By the way, if you guys haven't picked up that book, it's one of the most, it's a pretty short read. It's an amazing read. Okay. And he has a chapter in there where he talks about fate or destiny getting together and calling a conference. And it's like they're talking to Cameron, or they're talking to us, and they're saying, hey, fate and destiny get together and they say, we better get out of the way, because with enough determination, enough resolve, no matter what, pushing through, charging forward, running through brick walls, jumping over, side flips, underneath, crawling, whatever it is, if you have enough determination and focus, you can change where you're at. So Cameron, talk about your resolve and your way to continue to consistently move forward in a way that's not going to be stopped.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because I had a family member recently ask me, like, well, what can you just cash out right now and retire? And I'm like, you know what? It's crazy. I actually could. Like, it's crazy. And the last thing that I'm thinking about doing, and I got my wife and we share our biggest goal, right? And that's family, and that's family time. And it's not only family time, but it's being present with your families, right? With your members. So my wife and I and my kids and our relationship and our family time, that's number one priority. Now, that being said, like it's always work, because I love what I'm doing. Like, I love being a self-storage investor. I love being a storage coach. I love being an entrepreneur. And so, you're always checking yourself. It's always a fine line. But why I'm mentioning that is because, other than being a great husband and a great father, we see potential we've never seen ever. We've, like, you mentioned it, the game, right? Or Alex Hormozy's like, when you make a lot of money and now it's just a game, right? And it's like, it is, in a way, we're playing the game, and like the game has just begun, and we see so much opportunity, massive amounts of opportunity. And so if we can continue to streamline, to evolve, to build our systems, put our systems in place, hire the right people, we can still have our main priority, our family, right? But we can create, so much, not only wealth, but I think for me, and that's why I think probably coaching, I always knew was like in my heart, and really something that I was waiting to do my whole life, is because I think it's like self-fulfilling too, but I love helping people out, right? I have an airline pilot that's so green, and he just put an amazing deal under contract in Florida last week. Amazing. He's so green as an investor, and like knowing what he just did as a W-2 employee is like, it makes me so happy. Or I have a policeman coach. I have several firemen coaches, people that are working hard at W-2s and they don't want to. And so for me, taking that point and just the idea of like, man, I can help so much people. And I
Amazing.
can have a life I never imagined, but it's not necessarily the wealth. It's, you almost owe it to yourself, right? You start succeeding and all of a sudden, oh my God, we can pay for things we never imagined, but that's not really what it's about. And that's ultimately not what's going to make you happy. It's going to be what you do with that money, right? It's going to be, how do you influence people around you? How do you influence your kids, your wife, your parents? How do you influence strangers? And that's where I get my most joy. And so we've created this little machine, and we were like, oh my God, we owe it to ourselves, and we really owe it to, what it is to really push our own limits and make it as big and as profitable and as successful as we can.
Amazing. You can learn more about Cameron going to storagelife.com. That's storagelife.com. Yeah, it's inspirational and making an impact with your wealth and getting those freedoms to help other people get freedom with passive wealth or growing wealth. All of it, so you can do more good. That is amazing. Love it, Cameron. That being said, are you ready for the capital gains tax portion of this, where we're going to talk about a little bit of capital gains tax? Geek out with me.
As long as I don't have to answer any questions.
Well, it's pretty simple.
We're supposed to help people or know what you're talking about, then I'm all in.
Okay. Well, it's the key. It's an interesting one. We'll see where you're at. We'll test you a little bit. What's your biggest frustration when it comes to 1031 exchange, Cameron?
We're going through one right now. And so, it's probably not what you're expecting my answer, but for us, it's specifically, so we're 1031ing into storage, and that storage facility, we're buying for 2.1. We're paying the wholesaler 125 grand. There's about $150,000 of CapEx. And so I think for us, actually, the biggest challenging thing is getting the 1031 to fund the whole thing. And it's interesting. A part of that's also a lot of times a bank won't fund the wholesale fee, right? They're like, well, that's not part of the acquisitions. That's a fee you're paying for the deal. But there's ways kind of to back into that where they will pay for it. At least in my case, we've gotten that. Thankfully, our bank didn't have a problem with it. But then where it gets tricky is, I think your 1031. The trick is like, they kind of don't want to pay for improvements, and so I think it's the way that the bank has to structure it out. And so for us, it's really, that's been the most challenging part right now that we're dealing with on the 1031.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes it feels like you're having to squeeze like a round peg into a square hole, and it can be a little bit cumbersome, right? It's equal or greater debt, equal or greater value from what you sold for, and typically the whole entity must move. And sometimes it works out. If you can find the deal that makes sense, man, it's a great way to grow wealth, great way to defer that capital gains tax, especially in investment real estate. But sometimes it can be a shotgun wedding. You run out of time, or just you don't have a big enough deal, or it doesn't line up. That being said, we do have an alternative. If people want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Not only does it work for saving a failed 1031 in case a bank won't lend or in case a deal doesn't work out, but it also works for primary homes, businesses, crypto, stock, which the 1031 doesn't even work for. So if you're curious about what that looks like, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Also check out the new book that just came out on Amazon, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. We have the Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book, and a number of other really smart multifamily investors that are in the book as well. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com or Amazon. That being said, Cameron, are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, lightning round. That sounds great. Can't wait.
Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget make sure to tell yourself to do?
I'm not being very lightning, am I? I think really try and figure out what's really important and what's really going to make you happy. I was such an idiot at 25. It's hard. That's why this is a hard question for me. I feel like there were so many things to tell my 25-year-old self, but um, you know, um, not take things so seriously, not be so hard on yourself, and really try and figure out what's going to make you happy.
Excellent. Question number 2, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Um, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm not a big reader. I've never read a business book or a real estate book. So I don't know that I've read a book in the last year.
What's your favorite podcast, the number one podcast?
How about this? No, how about this? But this is fair. This is what I'll do. But my wife, and this is good. This is good. This is a good one. This could help somebody. So my wife's an excellent Cliff Notes. She gives the Cliff Notes. Okay. So I've had back pain for like 3.5 years, and I knew it wasn't really because of an injury. So somebody recommended a gentleman named Dr. Sarno, and Dr. Sarno, we read it, and it was you'll be very skeptical, but it's basically, he was an amazing medical doctor, died in like 92 years, but he's basically saying everything is like a psychosomatic pretty much. And she read the book, she gave me Cliff Notes, and I swear to God, in like a month, my back pain, in 3.5 years, I've been a physical therapy, a therapist, doctors, everything, you name it, the best of the best. And my back pain went away. And so did her carpal tunnel of years. So anybody has any kind of pain, it's your mind, it's stress related, and read Dr. Sarno.
How do you spell Sarno?
Sarno.
Okay, cool. Dr. Sarno, everybody. Next question. What are you most curious about right now, Cameron?
I'm most curious about what the next 12 months is going to look like, because, man, we got a lot cooking, and I finally got this amazing assistant who's like taking so much work off my plate. We're really scaling big time in our storage acquisitions, our storage wholesaling, my coaching program. Like, there's so many things I'm so fired up about, and I'm just like, can't even imagine what it's going to look like in the next 12 months. And so I'm most curious about that.
Fantastic. Last question. After all your success, helping all the people you've helped, building the business you've built, what's your number one practice for you to stay centered in your values and to stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
Staying healthy, closing my eyes, whether it's meditating or just, taking that time to relax, to be centered, not drinking too much caffeine or any, only wine on the weekends, but staying healthy and really, daily practice of making sure you're present, you're not pushing too hard, and going back to really making sure that I'm fulfilling what my wife and my kids need.
Amazing. Cameron, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing so much wisdom with us, so much inspiration, getting real and authentic with us, and sharing some of the challenges you've been through, but also all of the success you've also been through. It's been amazing. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts that you've been given, which I believe are not only underwriting and help people build wealth, but vision and inspiration to take action, to take momentum, and to not allow that momentum to slow down, but to continue to build that. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah. So again, by the time, in the next day or so, Storage Life will be live, but you can find me on Instagram, and that's just Storage Life Cam, Storage Life Cam. Find me on Instagram, finally starting to use it, posting, and we're going to really turn up the value on there. Shoot me a DM. Seriously, if you're interested in storage, and you're wanting to, I could answer any questions. If there's anything I can do, if I can help you, I will. I'd love it. So, send me a DM and just give me some time, whether it's a couple of days or maybe a week or two. I'll return your message if you shoot me a message. So
Amazing.
thanks.
Cameron, pronounce your last name because I know I butchered that all show.
I said it in the last podcast. That was funny. I hadn't thought about it in so many years, but it's Barsanti. The funny thing, I never heard it ever said. For the first time I ever heard it say properly was I was like 19, 20. I was on a train in Europe and I was in Italy. And the guy woke me up. It was like middle of the night. He's like, Mr. Barsanti. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I've never heard my name said like that. But yeah, Barsanti. So
Barsanti. Awesome, Cameron. Thank you so much. I also want to thank our listeners for listening to an episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. Also stream on Expert CRE Secrets podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. And using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust and or getting with someone like Cameron to invest in this self-storage facilities is an amazing way for you to create and preserve more wealth. Look, if you have an exit coming up in the next, really anytime, that's over $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, I would encourage you to go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com so you can start building your capital gains tax exit plan. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Don't forget the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Solutions Exit Plan. It is live on Amazon. Okay. And that is really, really looking forward to you checking this book out and let me know what you think about it.